right, folks, this is Barry Chamish in a better mood than last week when I didn't have any of my computer. This time, being forced to, I got my Skype back and it's better than ever. I got my printer back. I can thank Robert for that. Oh, it wasn't easy, but I'm back with you. Now, look, I've got Reuven Martin. He's not just a friend, he arranged with Tova, a very, very old friend, to get books to me. And one of the books was Rabbi Ankelman's To Eliminate the Opiate, Volume 2. I don't have any left. As soon as I discovered it, and there weren't many, I gave it to a few special people. Thank you, Reuven. And by the way, he doesn't want me to mention the name, and I won't, but I met him first. He lives north of Sderot. It was bombarded with hundreds, if not thousands, of missiles from Gaza, and he was reporting to me officially back then about the damage and the trauma and so forth. Without mentioning it, that's how we met. Reuven, how are you?
Pretty good. It's a little past 1 o'clock in the morning here. We're having a terrible heat wave.
Oh, I'm so sorry. We're in the middle of a hurricane or something here. You'll be interrupted. Yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll endure the hurricane. We don't have such weather, as you know, here.
Well, if you hear thunder, I didn't cause it. It's just background noise. Look, first things first. Now, you have to understand, time has taken its toll, but I remember this. You experienced my reportage of a strange military base. Now, I remember that going everywhere. Remind me, I'm an old man now. What was this all about? I do remember the reportage, but I don't remember it in detail.
You and Aaron Klein were working together in the early days before he...
WorldNet Daily.
Yeah. And you had both discovered what was probably an ammunition dump, the way it was described. I believe you even took some photographs of the...
I recall. And it went over WorldNet Daily. It went worldwide. But it wasn't just an ammunition dump. There was something peculiar about it.
Well, there are an unknown number of United States military installations in Israel. And there, of course, there are some that we do know about. But there are probably actually hundreds of these places. There's one in particular where a special type of radar that can see over the horizon, and that's down in the Negev somewhere. And
I remember going with Aaron, and I remember taking pictures. It wasn't an ammo dump that I recall. It was some sort of base for something, but I don't recall it being an ammo.
I say I don't know what it was, but I've been on a military ammo dump, and from what I remember, it looked very much like that, with these bunkers that are above ground and access to below ground. But I don't know. I wondered. I've not kept up with that. There's another mysterious building that's being built in Tel Aviv that they call 911, Building 911.
And that's good. It's expecting a plane to bring down.
Well, the reason we all found out about it is the way we find out about a lot of things is requests for proposals for various things. In this case, mezuzot. Request went out for a bid request for the mezuzot for this building, and then people started looking further into it and found that there's a very elaborate multi-story underground building with what appeared to be interrogation rooms, and it's all very, very strange.
Where is it?
I don't know specifically where it is in Tel Aviv, but it's in an industrial area.
How
Uh,
big is it?
Sorry, I don't remember those details, and I wasn't expecting to. It just came up in the conversation, or I would have tried to look it up.
All right, folks, look up
But
Aaron
building,
Klein, Barry Chamish. We wrote something that did it. It was everywhere, and that's
yeah,
you reminded me
this
of that.
this this thing that you and Aaron found was on one of the east-west roads out towards the Shomron. Uh, that, from what I remember, uh, the building 911 that I'm talking about. This is just a couple of years ago that we learned about this was going on. The point is, the United States has a tremendous investment in infrastructure here. So when people talk about that Israel receives aid, Professor Paul Eidelberg, years and years ago, did an analysis showing that Israel receives far more money from the tourist industry than in the so-called aid that comes from the United States.
Yeah,
The
but the aid
second,
goes straight to the military, and hopefully the tourist
yes,
industry goes to the people. And there is a difference.
yes. Also, the so-called aid is not aid at all because there requires that most of the money be spent in purchasing items from American military industries and corporations. Probably things that Israel, in the past manufactured on its own in a superior
So
quality.
what are you talking about? Cutting off the aid would be better
Well,
for.
we really don't need American aid. America is part of the occupying force. They are the primary force. They're not the only one, but they have taken a lot of the leadership in building the Palestinian Authority up and supporting it and twisting the arms, greasing the palms, probably, of the politicians who go along with this absurdity here.
Well,
And
it's pretty well over. The minute the PLO were invited back, it was over.
yeah, of course, we know historically that there were a lot of threats and possibly even some uh, uh, some deaths uh, that made that happen. Even back then, most of the people in the labor side understood that the impossibility and the stupidity of
Well, they
giving them
made
any kind.
Arafat really friendly. It's just like a good, friendly neighbor. I mean, this is a pedophile. I mean, this guy's got a record, but they made him like a really nice guy. He's going to be our neighbor from now on.
Well, I've been here for I'm in into my I've just finished 11 years, starting my 12th year being here, and since I've been here, the number the places where I am not allowed to go as a Jew have increased, and uh, if there is apartheid here, but it is not apartheid against Arabs or against Muslims. It is definitely against Jews. And just try to go up on Temple Mount, and the slightest thing. I went on Temple Mount one time, and I was I had only been here for a couple of months, and I was so overcome with uh, joy and astonishment at where I was standing, that I began crying, and I was immediately set upon by an Arab uh, policeman who was then joined by a Jewish policeman who were going to arrest me for crying. So a Jew is not permitted to pray or do anything or even
Oh,
cry
Aaron, you sound
on
so
Temple Mount.
naive. So Look, before I left Israel, and by the way, under duress, I'd lived there
Yes, I know
for
that.
32 years. I mean, you don't remember that Reuven captured all of Jerusalem, but decided that the Temple Mount was going to be handed over to the Waqf. This is 2 generations ago. My goodness. Uh, okay,
Well,
okay.
the thing we have to look at that so often in our history, our collective history as Jews, it has been these um, people within who are cooperating with whatever oppressive regime is subjugating us at the time, and
Well,
they have been the
actually, we
ones.
won. You know what? This
Sure,
was
in '67 we won. You're right,
all
but
right. We were the
immediately,
oppressive regime, but
immediately the Judenrat turned the victory into a big defeat, and and some future generations are going to have to. Uh, Eventually, it will work out. I have no doubt about that. I wouldn't stay here if I
work
didn't.
out.
I believe
When's the
this is.
last?
I believe this. Within everything is the seed of its opposite. We are supposed to be here. It's very difficult being here right now. At any time, it's been difficult, but especially right now, it's very difficult uh, uh, to live here
Why are you
unless you.
talking about working out? You want to go to the Sinai on a vacation? You used to be able to get on a
So
bus, go down to the beaches. What do you
okay,
mean
well
working
that's
out?
because history has a history. Things change, and
And what's going to change?
well, eventually we will have a generation of people who will not be so willing to be opportunistic, and of course they call it pragmatic, but it's really opportunistic and expedient uh, to pay jizya tax to the Muslims. That's really what's happening. Israel has made an alliance with the Saudis, the
Yeah, I
Egyptians,
read
and the
the.
Jordanians.
I want to add something. Nancy Nieder was a great guest last week. She sent me the report. I got it from all kinds of people. What do you know? Saudi Arabia contributed $80 million to the Netanyahu campaign, and the proof is pretty darn good. They're
Well,
in.
it's not at all surprising. Baruch Marzel has described, I think, very accurately Netanyahu as a sheep in wolf's clothing, and he does speak very
I'd be
well the
very,
Torah.
very careful about Baruch Marzel, okay? And
I
his
understand
Tamar
that
Ben
doesn't
Gavir.
mean that everything he says is wrong. He is. I understand
Uh,
what you're saying. I don't fully agree with you. I know Baruch well enough, but
he's better than this Ben Gavir who's out and out Shabak, the real thing. He's better than that, but I'd be
this I have heard this from you and from other people. I don't know it myself. I also have known Ben Gvir. I don't have much interaction with uh, any of that group anymore, uh,
I
just simply
wouldn't
because
quote
of
them.
logistics.
And forget logistics. I would be very wary. You want to talk about the enemy from within. I'd be very, very wary.
Well,
But I'm
I'm more concerned about. I see more of a danger coming from the ultra pious, ultra religious in Beit Vegan, in parts of Bet Shemesh, in parts of Betar Elite,
why?
in
What are they up to?
Yishurim than I do from the people you're mentioning.
What are they doing in Beit Vegan?
Well, there's a pretty strong clutch of what can only be called Taliban-like Jews there.
I don't
Uh,
know what that means.
uh, People who have, I think, very, very badly misunderstood the message of the Torah, which is, and have who have turned. Yeah. Well, hello.
I'm on the air. No, no, I'm on the air. Don't bug me. All right, I got rid of
Okay.
that. Now,
Uh, the 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 practices that we practice, if we're observant Jews, when did they get started? After the destruction of the temple in 70 of the
All
Common
right.
Era.
And how does this lead to bite the gun?
Because the practices, we went from being viable, an entire system of government, of practices. We became a religion like the other nations of the world. It turned into a religion.
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah,
All right.
well, listen. Yeah, you asked me to come on and talk about what I think, and
Yeah, but
this is.
Vatican is very, very Orthodox Jewish.
Yeah, they're very, very, also very idolatrous and very disrespectful, and it's not a very friendly place, as is the case with many of the ultra religious communities, where, for example, they will scream and insult young girls who are actually dressed very modestly, but simply because, who knows why they're doing what they're doing. They're just total fanatics, and they have fanaticized a beautiful and an important way of thinking and way of life. And they cooperate with our enemies, mainly
Oh,
by their silence.
okay. So these people who scream at modestly dressed women are from Beifaga.
I'm saying this ideology, this fanaticism that has replaced, that has taken the place of Torah observance, that actually began with when having a moment of elderly moment of forgetting Yochanan
Yeah,
ben Bar Yochai,
right.
who snuck out of Yerushalayim and went to Yavne, and with the assistance and approval of the Romans, created the practices that we call Judaism today, that replaced the temple service, that they did everything they could to make the Romans happy. But I want to say something positive. I think there was a lot of
You,
a kind of brilliance about what they did, because when you say the Amidah, what are you saying? You're repeating again and again how the temple services went on, and that we must, at the first opportunity, restore the that entire system. And that's where we are today. The challenge that we have before us today is for the first time in more since the Bar Kokhba rebellion, we have a real opportunity to reinstitute actual real Torah observance.
well, Bar
Not
Kokhba lost,
Bar
and
Kokhba lost
we were
because
spread all over.
yeah,
Okay.
we know this. There's no doubt about that. And but one of the biggest cities where you'll find many, many beautiful and decent Torah observant Jews living is Beitar Illit, which is not far from the old Beitar, which was the final place where the Romans put an end to Jewish sovereignty. And that's when Emperor Hadrian changed the name from Judea to Syria Palestinia. So, and we're stuck with that name to this day. Rabbi Kahana, who is, I consider, my primary source,
Yeah,
he
I've got
mentioned
some
that
stories.
he said that if Hadrian had not changed the name and it allowed it to remain its historical name of Judea, then Yasser Arafat would Yasser Arafat have started the Judean Liberation Organization? Another writer recently said, "What if they had changed the name of the land to Jupiter? The Jupiter, and so that we'd be talking about Jupiterians." So the whole thing, back to America and America's involvement. I I I I having grown up in America, especially I grew up in a time after the Shoah, after World War II, in a time of great freedom and prosperity, when it was really possible for people to get a very good education and
It
to
was
have
the
a
good times of the 50s and 60s, and we're now in deep recession. Now, where does this lead?
well, uh, history is changing, but the Torah does not change, and the commandments that we are obligated to follow have not changed, and they will not change.
Yeah, there's
But
interpretations, though.
this
That's
is the problem, as we have Rabbi Bar Chaim at Machon Shiloh is one of the eminent scholars, living scholars of today. He is denigrated and marginalized because of uh, his basically just pointing out the facts that the poison of the exile, that we have brought back with us the poison and the misunderstanding and misinterpretations from the exile, and we are not really seeing where we are right now. We're still
uh,
living in the past.
Reuven. I want you to know there are people. I mean, that's a right statement, but there are people who are seeing it. All right. If you open
Yeah,
up,
listen. There are always people, and I have learned from living in Beitar Elite and being in that world that that the majority of the people in that world are more than ready. They've been ready for a long time to establish the, to establish the
yeah,
Malchut, the kingdom that we are required to establish, and
you're
to
talking
stop
about
these.
you're talking about reestablishing a kingdom with a
Well,
king. Who would be king?
well, that had, for the first couple of kings are going to have to be from the line of David. So, and then this is not something esoteric and unknowable. It's been known, just like we know who the Kohanim are and the Leviim are. There's no question about that. It is well known who the descendants of King David. They are
Actually, I
alive.
don't know who they are. I've
Well,
heard
do
of
some
Kohanim.
research. Susan Roth is one of the a truly remarkable woman. I wish you could somehow get her on your
Well, I
show.
can. You're there. Put her on the. Put us
Well,
together.
I don't have that kind of direct contact with her, but
Oh,
she has spent a fortune uh, getting doing research and hiring professional researchers to document the Davidic line. She has a museum in on the western side of Mamilla, just as you start to enter the old city. You know,
I know it. I know it.
they've built this giant modern shopping complex that takes you into the old city. And just before you go into that, there's this rather small museum about the King David Trade Center.
I got to
So,
stop you. Uh,
got it.
you. All right, those three bleeps mean we have to take a break. And again, put her on the show. Manila isn't that far away, my goodness. Look, we'll be back in 3 minutes, folks. And remember, what can I say? Do I believe a kingdom is possible? It doesn't matter. All right? It doesn't matter. Our guest does. I'll see you all in 3 minutes.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
Hey, folks, interesting interview, huh? All right, first of all, how do you get a hold of me? All my books. And by the way, thanks to Reuven, I got a bunch here. Boy, are they being distributed well. Thank you, Reuven. All right, all my books are at lulu.com. That's www.lulu.com. There's a search box right in my last name, Chamish, Chamish. And you'll get to my books at Lulu. And I have a website, but I got my own problems. If ever there was a need for a webmaster who cared, I just advertise. It's www.barrychamish.com. How can people get a hold of you, Reuven?
Well, I'm not
Available?
I'm not in that milieu. I'm not a person who is trying to be famous or to write a book
People
or
just want to
anything
say
like that.
hello. Just someone who was impressed and wants to say hello. Is there no way to get a hold of you?
Oh, really not. I barely use the internet. I have as time has gone on, I've become more and more
Well,
wary
can you
of it.
really do it without it? My
Yes,
computer was
I think
bombed.
I think I could do very well without it. Although this is wonderful to be able to speak with you like this. It's one of the positive
It really
uses of it.
is, and there's so much more. Look, I got headaches. I have a new computer and it cost me a bunch of money. I got bombed. 6,000 bombs a day on my email. It was a nightmare.
Yes,
But
you're a you know you you're pretty big target for a lot of people. A lot of people want.
apparently. Look, let's
But
go through
anybody who
stuff.
speaks out, Mayor Ettinger is supposedly going to get out of administrative detention in 2 weeks.
Oh, then you have to explain that. Oh, you know what? First things first. Before we get on to Ettinger, and I've got a few stories about the Kahanas myself, by the way, pretty awful ones, but neither here nor there. Let's do facts that you sent me that I think are really, really important. The first is you're, you have interviewed many of the Arab building suppliers who are making a fortune. That's your wording. Building in Beitar, Efrat, and elsewhere. Let's talk about uh, that side of things. That it's worth their while to have settlements.
Yes, this is a unreported aspect, and a lot of people will. I think a lot of people are going to be angry with me for speaking about it this
Who
way.
cares? Speak about it.
Well, you do come to that point, I suppose, in life where you have to stop worrying too much. The problem with living in Israel is you can end up like Mayor Ettinger and find yourself
Oh,
sitting in a dirty
exactly.
little place in Petah Tikva and with nobody, not really knowing what to do. But
Let's go
yes,
back to the Arabs. You're saying they're
The Arabs are
profiting
making a fortune
there.
from the huge spurt of building that's going on in Beitar Illit and elsewhere in Gush Etzion. Now also there are Israeli Arabs who are able to cross the cross over and go into Bet Shemesh and work, and they do,
Yes, they do.
hundreds of them. So similar things are going on over there, but I think I understand that the building suppliers in Bet Shemesh actually tend to be
Well,
Jewish
we're
building
talking about the
suppliers.
settlements, which
Yes.
supposedly the Arabs hate and get nothing out of, but uh, you're saying
Well,
they're
in last September, when the wave of the knife attacks began and hysteria spread, this is one of the bad sides of the internet. How rumors and how hysteria and panic can be spread so quickly, and they basically they just shut down all of the building, and the people who were hurt were the Arabs who really don't want to hate us, who have no really motive. They don't really have many of them have no motivation at all to hate us, even though their religion teaches them that they don't really believe that, and their lives are much better. So the economic impact on them, I think I wrote you about this in a couple of emails.
yep, yep.
Economic impact on them was terrible to the point I mean, real distress about how were they going to eat and feed their families. But the 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 interesting thing is how Husan is across the road from Beitar Illit, and in the past, Husan was a well-known source of some of the most active terrorist operatives uh, in Israel. How that changed, I don't really know, except I suspect that the economic incentives in this case, the economics doesn't always solve problems, but sometimes it does. and they decided, at least for the time being, that it was better for them to sell building materials, tools, and provide labor to the people they hate than to try to destroy them.
I
So
suppose that's the foundation of something. Now, I want to go on. I, at your request, only put you on for an hour. I would have loved to, but you said no. But I want to go to the B'nai Noach. This is where Rabbi Antelman set me up with someone named Vendel Jones. I
yes, I
was
knew
in
Vendel. I
Texas.
knew Vendel.
Well, I stayed with him and gave, his
So
group
were
I
you at
like.
Vendel's house in Grand Prairie?
Yes, sure was. I gave lots of lectures, and yeah, I sure was. I was very comfortable there. This was different than other Christian groups. I melded with them, and I didn't feel uncomfortable. Um,
Vendel had a great gift for that, and he was he. It's not very well known that actually when Vendel tried to convert to become a Jew,
his
and
daughter did. She lives
well, some of
just
his
that.
family did, but when he was a younger man, he was a preacher, and as he began studying the Tanakh, he realized that many of his beliefs were just simply mistaken, and he began seeking out authoritative rabbinical help, and and they eventually ended up in direct contact with Rabbi Kahana, who urged him and was really the first observant, so-called Orthodox rabbi to help Vendel to get the B'nai Noach movement going. And
Well,
uh,
I think Rabbi Antelman, this is important, and I want you in our short time to talk about Harav Emden. Now,
yes,
Rabbi, well, it's important. Um, Rabbi Antelman quotes him like crazy. He hated the Sabbateans. He was an 18th century rabbi who saw what was being done to Judaism from within, and he was an opponent of Shabtai Tzvi. And
and also of he was still alive when when Frank
Frank,
was beginning some of his when the Frankists were starting. But you're right, Jacob. Rabbi Emden lived from 1697 to 1776. I wanted to when I originally thought that I was going to be on for 2 hours. I was
no,
going to
you
be
wrote me and said you definitely told me not all two. All right, I'll have you
well,
back next week. We'll
there Susan Roth, who I mentioned earlier, I think is one of the most important writers and thinkers and she wrote a book called Moses in the 20th Century, and she has an extensive quote from Rabbi uh, Rabbi Abraham Isaac Cook. He wrote in Derek HaTechiyah, The Road to Renewal, that itself quotes Rabbi Emden, and I it's too long to 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 quote, but Rabbi Emden pointed out that 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 the Christians, although they had at times in their history were very not very nice to us, not very harsh with us. The fact is, they brought into the world the laws of the B'nai Noach, and they made those available to the Gentiles.
And what
Rabbi
laws
Emden,
are they? What laws are they? What are the B'nai Noach nature of Christianity? What laws are you talking about?
well, I am quoting Rabbi Emden, okay, and Rabbi
Okay.
Cook. I'm not my. These are not my own. I haven't come up with anything new on my own. The B'nai Noach laws are that there's a prohibition against idolatry, against blasphemy, against murder, against stealing. Certain types of sexual practices are forbidden. It's forbidden to cruelty to animals by eating the cutting the limb off of an animal and eating it and letting the animal live, and the commandment to establish courts of justice, and of course that means police and courts and all that. So those are the basic laws that distinguish uh, a society, make a truly human society. And these Hashem set these laws before us that we are to do these things. So Rabbi Emden points out that really in the beginning of the movement that would become known as Christianity, I believe Rabbi Emden calls him the Nazarene.
All right. He was
Again,
not from Nazareth. I suppose
well,
that.
so again, I'm not. I'm saying I'm only quoting what Rabbi Emden said. I'm not trying to get into a pill over the historical facts. I am not a Christian. I have never been a Christian, but I grew up in a Christian culture, and I actually had basically a good experience with them. They're very, very decent people. And a little bit of an aside here,
Yeah.
living that I have noticed how generous Christian groups, especially groups like the Christian Friends of Israel, how generous they are to people who really, really need help, who don't have money to pay for doctors or food. They show a tremendous kindness to people. But
Is this B'nai Noach, or they want you to convert afterwards?
well, there are
That's
some
where I.
always some who that's really their purpose. They disguise their
That's
charity.
where Vendel Jones was so special. I felt really comfortable around him.
Yeah, Vendel argued with the messianic, the ones who were trying to convert us, and so anyhow, Rabbi Emden addresses a lot of this. And there is some controversy about this. I believe Todia Singer, one of the eminent scholars on these issues about Jewish and Christian relationships, people who really want to know the the uh, the true Jewish perspective ought to look at Tobias Singer's work on this. But the 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 he says Rabbi Endem says that he wrote something called a letter to the Council of the Four Lands, and it was in 1757
Right.
that this was written, and here's a small quote that for it is recognized that also the Nazarene and his disciples, especially Paul, warned concerning the Torah of the Israelites, to which all the circumcised are tied. And if they are truly Christian, they will observe their faith with truth and not allow within their boundary the new unfit fake Messiah Shabtai Zvi who came to destroy the earth. Now that's a direct quote from Rabbi Emden. So now why would Rabbi Emden, who's very strict Orthodox Jew, who's aware of the problems of Shabtai Zvi, why would he say such nice things about the Christians? Now there are more details about why he says this.
Reuven, 1 second. Shabtai Zvi had a new Judaism where everything in the Torah was true in its opposite. Now, this is where Rabbi Antelman explained it so well. Do not kill became kill. As one extreme example. What Shabtai Zvi was bringing to the Jews, I suppose, was nihilism.
Listen, I understand all this, Barry. Please. I mean, you don't have to educate me on this. I've spent years studying this. I had 2 conversations before I made Aliyah by telephone with Rabbi Antelman, talking to him about that I was asking him look a little bit deeper into some of his harsh views about Freemasonry. But I'm aware of what
Well,
you're saying.
how did
But
he react? What did he tell you?
well, he we didn't have really sufficient time to go into the details, but Freemasonry is actually a B'nai Noach uh, uh, organization, and those
Oh,
who denigrate and turn Freemasonry. I'm talking about the basic Freemasonry, not the groups that came along later and call themselves Freemasons with all their degrees. The basic Freemasonry is about establishing the B'nai Noach as the baseline of human expectations for human behavior and human government, and that's all been obscured in a talk about a hurricane, just a storm of misinformation, maliciousness, generated very much by the Catholics, by the way. You
by the
never hear
way,
about the vicious. Why don't we ever hear about the the Knights of Columbus or other secret societies such as the Quill and the Dagger? There are hundreds of these. We hear about Skull and Bones and all these fraternities, and they are blamed they're blamed for changing the weather now, and it's just a kind of it's just too much. It's over the top,
so
denigrating
you're
an entire
saying the
group of.
Freemasons are essentially good guys um, at
They
their
are.
core.
They are
All
definitely, and
right.
I'm talking about Blue Lodge Freemasonry. I'm talking about the first 3 degrees of Freemasonry. Really, that's all that there is. All these other things were added on uh, later, uh, but back to the B'nai Noach laws. These are the principles upon which uh, a truly human civilization must be built. And the United States itself, the Constitution of the United States, was a B'nai Noach concept. It was an extension of the B'nai Noach ideas into this world. And
Oh, that would be your Freemasonry then. You know,
well,
the
it was not all of the founders were Freemasons, but the key people, especially the ones in the military, who who made
the
the
ones who built
revolution successful.
Washington, the ones who laid out the streets. You know,
Yes, there is a Kabbalistic form, and there's nothing evil about Kabbalah at all. It's a that's a we could talk about that another time, but the concept of
next
the
time
B'nai
you're
Noach.
on, which could be soon, look at the Supreme Court building in Israel.
Oh, I've been there. I've been there. I went and watched, and watched the trials of people who were arrested for doing nothing more than holding up signs protesting the expulsions from Gaza, from Jenin. And it's intentionally designed as a tomb inside. When you go into those courtrooms,
Yep.
they are designed like tombs, and it's an atrocious an atrocious building.
May I add, do you have my book Bye Bye Gaza?
You know, I have an electronic version of that you
All
sent me
right. I was
some
one
time
of the
ago.
protesters. It didn't do any good. They didn't listen to me, but I watched them be idiots. I watched them get thrown out just like I said they would.
There's a great documentary film called Miraglim with
Oh, the
English subtitles.
spies. And
Miraglim, and
that's
it's
Itamar
available on
Ben
YouTube.
Gvir is one of the main spies. I know the
Well,
movie.
listen, I object. I often get into arguments with people about you, and I object to people uh, uh, castigating you and taking your work out of context and just making things up about what you say.
You do my best here.
from
Got
what I can see, you're one of the
all
most
the
important researchers in Israel, and you did your best to continue the work that Rabbi Antelman was working on, and
yeah,
I
Jim.
wish that he had lived a little bit longer, so that that could have been carried forward. But I only know Ben Gvir in a positive way,
That he
and
got all the women and all the protesters thrown out after he showed up with his little gang and his little sign, "Screw Arabs, Muhammad is a pig." Next day, there's no more protests. Then
yeah. Listen, I know all this, and I wonder myself about a lot of
oh,
things and a lot of people here, and I don't know who. The situation here is very strange. Nadia Matar, I think.
I
Uh,
think she's innocent. I think she's doing.
I think she is a truly courageous and loyal woman. There was another woman from Hebron you've had on your show a few
Oh,
times,
Daisy is great.
Daisy.
Yeah,
Truly
she's great.
amazing.
Yeah.
There are some really amazing people here. The man who has the website Essential Intelligence, I can't recall his name at the moment. He's been on your show a couple of times. There are a lot of people here who understand the
Not
situation.
enough. Not enough.
Yeah, but the problem we have is there is not a mechanism by which we can change policy. You cannot get into the political system and change the course of things. And this is a very, very difficult lesson.
Reuven, I want to say something because we're about to be cut off. What
Yeah.
you did with the books, you and Tova, you introduced. Look, Rabbi Antelman, there were so few books. I made sure they got into very, very important hands. Nothing is sitting in my house. I'm getting it all out from here. That's all I want to say. It's a thank you, but I'm doing my part, honest.
Well, it was the only thing that I could do.
It was a
I've had
big.
like many other people who come here. I came at a difficult time. I came when the country was another salami slice. By the way, they've opened the Erez crossing now, which is just another step towards the eventual creation of what I call a Palestinazi, and I don't do that as a cleverness. I say that because there is a continuity of ideology between the Nazis and these people calling themselves Palestinians. They're also telling the people who live in the communities around the Gaza envelope, they're making these big plans about evacuating these areas for their safety. But hey, guess what? This is another step towards turning more land over to the people who've been hating us since they murdered all of the Jews of Khaybar for over 1,400 years. And now
You're
I
saying
wanted to say
something.
something about Donald Trump. We didn't get a chance to talk
No,
about
I don't want to talk about him. I really don't. He can go to hell with the rest of the politicians in America. All right, now let's go back. You are saying something really obvious. Oh, darn. I was going to talk about gas, and there's no time. Of course, it's the next step. Of course, it is. Look, Reuven, you were a great guest. We'll do it again real soon. Promise from me.
I'll do my best, Barry.
You did real good.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
everything you
folks.
do, and keep your spirits up. And
Oh, they're up after this interview. Folks, coming in very shortly is Chuck Wilcox. I think you'll get a kick out of him. Coming up soon.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.